So the Ripple XRP lawsuit is now officially over. And there's two things I've seen in the comments section all throughout the day. What's going to happen to the XRP price next? / why haven't we pumped like crazy? And I'd say the more important question of, is it really over? Will there be an appeal? What's going to happen in that department? So long story short, the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit is over. And what that means is that the lawsuit has concluded. A final judgment has been served by the judge. So the judge basically said, hey, this is the complaint. This is the solution. Over. So as an answer to your question, yes, the lawsuit is done. Over. XRP is not a security. Ripple pays 125 mil, and Ripple cannot do a few things, which won't really matter. With regards to appeal, the SEC has 60 days from last night to file an appeal. Yes, it's true. And even though many of the cases, as in many of the appeals they could go for, really wouldn't make a lot of sense, there are a couple of things that would and that they could go for. Now let me elaborate. In this lawsuit, there were quite a few complaints and quite a few moving parts. As it currently stands, the SEC has choices as to what part exactly they're not really messing with, which part they don't fully agree with. Or in Jeremy Hogan's words, you can read for yourself here exactly what happened. But with regards to the appeal, Mickey D asks another question, Jeremy. The SEC will have 60 days, right, to go against this all, which knowing them, they will. What are they likely to appeal against? And do they stand much chance of getting anything from appealing? Could it go to the Second Circuit? And Jeremy Hogan's response was, they have a right to appeal, and if they do, the focus will be on the programmatic sales for sure. And again, if you had forgotten about that, in the original complaint, or at least I think the first amended complaint, back in February of 2021, this is what we saw. There were complaints about institutional sales, under which unwritten contracts, for which it received $728 million, right? Programmatic sales on digital asset exchanges, for which it received $757 million, and other distributions under written contracts, for which it recorded $609 million in consideration other than cash. And I believe, but I may be wrong on this, but I believe that the SEC now only won on point number 1, which is institutional sales, where Ripple had a direct relationship with an institution, had a legal contract to sell them XRP, and following the judge's decision, there was some expectation of profit, and the other parts, which made this constitute as which constituted this as a sale of a security, aka an investment contract. Point number 2 and 3 were denied, though, if I'm not mistaken, because with programmatic sales, the difficult part is if Ripple, for example, is selling XRP on an exchange, right? You don't know the person on the other end. So it's very hard to now argue that that person willingly went into an investment contract with you and received these expectations of profit from you, since you don't know them. You don't know who you're transacting with. Anyway, my point would get to the fact that some things can be appealed here, of which we don't know what they are going to do, if at all. But for the most part, it will be a very difficult battle yet again, with no real difference in conclusion. I mean, ultimately, the worst that can happen is that Ripple has to pay a bigger fine, which, again, knowing that this went down from $2 billion to $125 million is probably not going to be crazy. But more importantly, this judge would then have to rule on the fact that you transacting with other players all over the world could now be considered investment contracts in the context of all this. I think that's a very, very hard one. And even though the SEC has tried against worse odds, even to them, I don't think it would be very logical to appeal this $125 million. But then also, I don't think they'd win on the other department because of how vocal the judge has been in the past. Also partially because the SEC changed their opinion time and time again. But for the most part, because I think the whole judgment here quite recently and of last year has been pretty tight. I know there's 1,000, okay, let's actually say it the more real way. There's 1 million or 2 new documents that can probably be found out of which something crazy might still pop up. And again, part of my reasoning here, because even though we can't rule out an appeal, first of all, it is literally the end. The case is over, and it would basically be like starting another lawsuit all over again. But I think Tony Edward here also had some pretty nice words about it. He said, I see some people are saying Gary Gensler will just appeal the SEC v. Ripple ruling. I think you're missing the bigger picture here. Gary Gensler, as of this point, has lost the narrative. His lies and political agenda given to him by Elizabeth Warren are getting exposed. He's losing major court cases. He wanted $2 billion for Ripple, but only got $125 million. and XCB got the clarity as not intrinsically being a security. Plus, he is feeling political pressure. He got called out by Donald Trump. Trump gets presidency, Gary Gensler's out. Democrats are turning on him and Elizabeth Warren and much more. My point there being very harsh against crypto right now is not as nice as it was 4 years ago. So if they right now want to open up the discussion that a company selling cryptos over an exchange, mostly foreign exchanges, that's going to be a very, very difficult case with almost no support that, again, could be done. Because we know the SEC has done crazier things. But it's, in my opinion, basically like fighting a completely new lawsuit with its own sets of troubles and funny parts. So when it comes to the price, many people have been asking me this. Where do I think the price will go? Well, I think that if you really look at XRP from the angle which I look at it, if you ever liked it, you should like it more now. If you ever thought it would go to an all-time high, there's right now a higher probability that that's actually able to do so. And if you've been here for the last 4 years, most of everything XRP related was about the lawsuit. Right now, it's going to start to switch around again. Talk about utility. Talk about everything besides just the lawsuit. And more importantly, in the 2021 run, we had some crazy pressure from the lawsuit, most likely keeping it down. It was still able to go to $2. I still don't see any chance where XRP doesn't go to multiple dollars. I'm talking at least $7 or $8, but I'm personally thinking more along the $10, $12 line this season. And because of this beautiful result here, potentially that multiplier has now been adjusted in an even more positive sense. And I've also seen many people ask about higher price targets like 100, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care for that too much. I care more about what can happen in the next few months, what is pretty realistic. And anybody telling me like a few bucks, maybe even $10 is not realistic, we have different opinions, I can't really accept any opinion as better. It's just different, obviously. When it comes to XRP price, under like $10 or so for a season. I'm talking $2 back in 2021, $3, $4 back in 2017. If it doesn't hit 10, I don't know, man. But there's also some bigger outliers if Bitcoin actually goes on a crazy run. Right now, as I'm speaking, Bitcoin is actually, oh, never mind. Bitcoin just had a pretty cool spike to 58,000, but we got shot right back down to 57.2. Anyway, the point is quite clear. If Bitcoin goes for a crazy run, XRP will most likely just kind of drift in the wake for a little bit until it starts out-exposing or outperforming like crazy when a lot of other altcoins do. Then again, XRP is a pretty unique one where very often it goes on this crazy tangent, on this crazy run, without it really having a good reason. And so I'm thinking right now, some people are still not completely convinced that the case is really over. And some, as I said before, don't think it really was a big deal because the price is not at like dollars or whatever. But understand that we had two different lawsuit victories, both of which pumped the price by a pretty good penny. Last time about 100%, this time around 40%. I do believe, though, that the pump that we've seen just now was relatively kind of small for where it should be. So I'm personally still thinking if we had not had the crazy correction and the crazy fears of a recession in all the other markets, then perhaps would have been at 90 cents or so right now, if not more. But perhaps also when we got to those prices, it could have been quicker and quicker of an acceleration. And so for right now, what I'm just saying is, I believe there's a good chance that it's still going to showcase itself, though, but just not in the way you expect. When it comes to crypto, and especially when it comes to XRP, very often things work in a crazy fashion. And if you've not done it yet, guys, make sure you go ahead and press that like button. I'll also be talking about the whole journey and story here on the channel every single day. Talk about some other altcoins I like at the time. I'll talk about wherever I see us making the most amount of money when it comes to our crypto portfolios. So make sure you put the notification bell on if you haven't done so already. And also, and this is very important, if you're looking for a place to trade, I personally use Bybit. I've left the link down below. And the nice thing about it is there's a couple of different ways to trade on there. I have multiple tutorials on my channel though, but just check out Bybit. It's my #1 favorite crypto exchange out there. And again, the link is going to be down below.